1. Hey, college wrestling fans, it's JT1Wrestle here. We have a great guest today, a three-time NCAA Division I All-American and national champion at the University of Illinois, now the head coach of Elmhurst. Please welcome to the show, Steve Marianetti.
How's it going, Steven?
Great. So, Coach, one of the first questions I want to ask you today is you were a three-time NCAA Division I All-American and a national champion at the University of Illinois. You went on to some great international success. You won Pan American Gold, World Cup, and Goodwill Games Silver. What have been the comparisons and contrast of moving into coaching at the NCAA Division III level?
Yeah, that's a great question. Certainly, there's a lot of differences, structurally, administratively, um, but at its base, a lot of us love coaching, and I got hooked on coaching, really, I mean, first of all, just because of what my coaches, Mark Johnson and Jim Heffernan, did for me. One of the stories I tell is, my freshman year. So I redshirted, and then my freshman year, I won 13 matches. I had, Johnson and Heffernan come in, um, and over that, so our coaches got fired. They came in, took over the program from that spring, summer, and fall. That next year, I ended up winning 44 matches, finishing fourth in the country. And, what I tell guys, like, that was all coaching because if it was left up to me, my goal was to be a All-American by senior year. And, they had much higher expectations for me. And that's really where I first got hooked on coaching. And so when I was competing, after I graduated, I was competing, I was coaching, I was getting my master's in advertising and didn't know if I was going to keep coaching, going forward. But those 7 years of getting to be on that other side and coaching guys in the room every single day at Illinois, I mean, it really was just such a calling, such a fun process that, I wanted to eventually. I got to that decision making time, like, no, I think I want to keep coaching. Um, and so, you know, you're coaching wrestlers, right? At its simplest. I would say, one cool thing I saw is that, at the Division III level, you're going to get guys coming kind of at all different levels versus, you know, going to a Big Ten school where, everybody is a two-time state champ and coming in with a lot of accolades. And so, at the Division III level, I found out very early on, like if you put a good system together, if you really are into coaching, you can make a huge difference with these guys. And, you're going to make a difference at the D1 level. It's just harder to see, if you're dealing with a Yanni or a Bo Bassett or, whoever. It's like, man, they're already absolutely unbelievable, but to take, a guy like Joe Rao, who was our Olympian in Greco this past Olympics, he qualified for state. He never placed at the state tournament. So to have a guy like that become a national champ, a three-time All-American here, and a lot of other examples, you can really, with good coaching, see these guys reach their potential and see just giant jumps. So it's incredibly gratifying, right from the start, just seeing what the power of coaching can do, and obviously then that fuels you to keep getting better as a coach and keep trying to build a team. So but I would say right now, man, being a Division I coach seems like just a really rough job, with all the changes that have been happening. So, selfishly, I'm very happy. I'm where I am. I'm not trying to raise millions of dollars every single year, and all that they're going through with NIL, and so it's become that Division I was becoming, a CEO kind of job, a while ago, and it's really become that now, and for most of us, we're drawn to this for the coaching.
Right.
So at the Division 3 level, yeah, we've got a lot of other things. We still have to fundraise. We have to do a lot of things, but just such a lower level, and we get to actually do a lot of coaching, being on the mat, working with guys, developing them. So, I think that was a it was a kind of gamble early on, but it's really been a great experience being at this level.
You were talking about Coach Johnson and Coach Heffron on earlier here when I asked you the first question. And when you were in college, you pulled off what is, even to this day, 30 years later, one of the most prolific and talked about upsets of all time when you knocked off Lincoln Malcarabi 13-10 in the 1995 NCAA Division I Finals. Can you talk about how Johnson and Heffernan prepared you for that moment and the types of strategies that now, 30 years later, you would give your own wrestler if he were facing a formidable opponent like Lincoln McElravy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they did a great job. I mean, I had wrestled Lincoln I think I was a sophomore at the Big Ten semifinals, and then senior year we were supposed to see each other a few times during the year, and for various reasons, it didn't work out. So we ended up not wrestling to the Big Ten finals. So at least I got a chance to kind of have that experience and feel them again, and be in a close match. And from the Big Tens, we really saw that okay, I can compete with them. And I'm not going to break under that physical onslaught that comes along. And so yeah, the physical preparation was horrible. I had a bunch of my teammates doing just rotating in on me for those couple weeks, and that whole idea of like you have to be able to swim in those deep waters and be able to keep your head about you, and deal with just the physicality and obviously the pressure of the situation. So in the room, they did a lot of great stuff as far as just pushing me physically, having fresh guys come in on me and having to deal with that. And, there was nowhere else to go. You can't feel sorry for yourself. You're in there and you have to figure out how to be able to still be competitive when you're exhausted. So physically they did a great job with that. Obviously, like tactically, the hand fighting is coming, the boot scoots there. You're looking for the important things that your opponent is really, really good at. And I think, a third thing was just the mental side. And, I've told this before, but, I work with a sports psychologist, Dr. Darren Treasure, my whole senior year. One of my biggest problems was I wouldn't score points very well. I was very good at scoring and then being really defensive. Coach Johnson used to call me Steady Eddie because I get that first takedown. It was like, all right, match is over, but I'm not going to try to score any more points. So that was a big problem with myself. And so both, through the coaches trying to push me to be scoring and, working in that sports psychology realm and kind of trying to get those, whatever is blocking me from continuing to attack, continuing to try to score, continuing to be a better wrestler. That whole year made such a huge difference in my confidence going into that last match. And, at some point going into that last match, I just being an underdog is a pretty fortunate thing. There is no pressure. If I lost that match, like what an amazing season. But going into that and just knowing like, okay, you can win this match. Like, go do what you're going to do, and we'll see where the chips fall when the match is over. But yeah, they did a amazing job of keeping me relaxed, keeping me loose. I had my teammate Ernest Benyon, who won the national title 7 minutes after me, and he and I had an exact routine through the whole national tournament. Exactly when we started warming up, how many laps we did, how many Gatorades we drank in between goes, So we had a very kind of strict ritual where it's like, this is working and we just need to stay with this. And, it at least in your head keeps you kind of calm. It's one of the few things you can control. So we really controlled that. And, these are all things, that I learned not with just that match, but just competing in general and competing internationally that, I use with our team. Whether it's video analysis or just mental preparation, how to be looking at things a better way. So, yeah, I was incredibly fortunate to be in that situation and have that level of coaching and be able to pull that off.
Now, you were speaking earlier about, Division One wrestling and how it's difficult to coach at that level because of the NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff, which kind of leads me into my next question for you, Coach. Over the years, Elmhurst has had some Division One wrestlers transfer in and have tremendous success. Mikey Benefiel from Oklahoma State won a D3 title for you guys in 2013. Ryan Prater, not all that long ago, won a D3 title for you guys, I believe, in 2014. Since the transfer portal is now a part of the wrestling world, and you see guys able to go, at will where they want to go. Will Elmhurst look more into opportunities to get more of these types of wrestlers?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Elmhurst, all of us. I mean, we're still, at least I'm trying to figure out exactly. I think everybody is like, what is going on here with NIL and where the roster caps are. What's happening this year. We have a pretty good idea what's going to happen in the future. But the bottom line is if these programs are capped at 30 guys, there are just so many high level wrestlers out there that aren't going to have a home. So that is, I think, going to continue to build Division Two and definitely Division Three, where guys want a chance to compete. They want a chance to, be on a team and, become All Americans, become national champions. You have to have that opportunity. So I think with these roster caps and where things are at, I mean, it's sad, but I think that is going to be helping Division Three quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, we're always looking for those high level guys. I mean, there's developing guys and there's recruiting guys, and certainly when you're bringing in guys at that level of a Benefiel or a Prater, like man, those are program changers.
Speaking about program changers, and I'm sure it's debatable, and people would throw some other names at me too. But if he's not the best, he's definitely in the top five of the best NCAA Division III freshmen of last year. Talking about Renzo Augusto, just a phenomenal freshman last year. He won Pete Wilson. He won the Collegiate Conference of Illinois and Wisconsin. He ended up taking a second place finish at Regional 5. Wasn't an All American, became close. Talk about Augusto and what he's meant to the program moving forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, Henzo has been a
I'm sorry if that's the
absolutely.
same wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a silent R. But yeah, he's been absolutely amazing. I mean, one is he is an absolute joy to coach. I mean, the kid listens to everything. He's excited to continue learning. But from a program standpoint, not only that and the example he shows there, but just the level of competition that he's bringing in. So to have a guy that's as a freshman, is that level is just he's been a game changer for us and just something that we're really building around. And we just saw his development through the year. He was interesting case just in recruiting in general, where he was looking at some Division I schools and wasn't really talking to us during the season, and then wants what his future plans are. He wants to get into the UFC down the road, but Izzy Martinez who coaches at Izzy Style, really helped me with, getting back in touch with Enzo and, seeing that, Elmhurst was, a great opportunity for him to be training here, to be right down the road from Izzy. So it's been just a great situation that way too. And then we've got our graduate assistant coach, Joey Bianchini, who is a national finalist at St. Cloud State, a three-time All-American, and was a 41 pounder. So he's working out with Enzo on a daily basis. So to have like that level of guy in the room pushing your top guys. So it was really a fun year to have a freshman do that well. And the only freshman in the 157-pound bracket, and he makes the national tournament, wins two matches. Yeah, so it was a blast, and obviously, like looking forward to him and our six other returning starters, and our 14 freshmen coming in. It's exciting. It's really
You know,
exciting
speak,
right now.
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the starters you got coming back, you got some other good kids on the team. For example, Donovan Fields was a Collegiate Conference of Illinois and Wisconsin finalist last year, took eighth at Region 5. What are your goals for him and the rest of the team this season?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Donnie was just a awesome story too. He had a solid high school career, but really, freshman year, he just he was scrappy and pretty competitive right away. And then, by the middle of the season on, I mean, he was just a really tough competitive guy right off the bat, and then he built on it last year and makes the conference finals and places at the regional. I mean, he's just continued to get better, and he's one of those guys that I think physically maturing, and I think in high school he wasn't quite there. So we're just really seeing him kind of growing into a man physically, and he's exactly what you want. A kid that's super hungry to get better and works his butt off in the room. Just all the good stuff. But like he's seen some big improvements, and he's another guy we're building on for next year.
Coach, my last question I have for you today involves your location. Elmhurst is in really a great spot. You're right there near Chicago, and you have so many. You were saying how close Izzy was to you guys, but really, you're in a really great wrestling area. I mean, the University of Chicago, that's a close drive for you guys. North Central's not all that far. What's it like to be in an area where the wrestling is pretty rich?
Oh, I mean, it's a great situation on a bunch of levels. One, just where we are from a wrestling standpoint is, we're going to have a lot of guys just within, a 60, 70-mile radius that are really, top level guys. So that plays a huge role with our location. And then just location as a school goes a long way too. We're 16 miles from Chicago, one of the great cities of the world. And, we're in a Chicago suburb. So there's just a ton of things for guys to do. So I think it's a pretty attractive, situation if guys want a smaller school environment, but want a lot of stuff to, you know, do around, the area. I mean, we have the train tracks to the city, 2 blocks from campus. Our guys go to Cubs games all the time. They're not allowed to go to Sox games, just
Oh
Cubs games.
no.
Yeah.
I tell you, I was just in Chicago. My best friend, he had his 39th birthday, so we all went. Kind of surprised. We were really expecting to go, kind of a thing his wife planned, and we all went to Chicago. And I tell you, I had never really sat down and realized this, but I'm like, man, if you lived in Chicago, you have, I mean, there's like college wrestling like nearby less than an hour every direction you go. It's like there's so many great teams, and I guess I didn't realize that until I sat down and saw that this weekend. I thought that was really cool, but um, we actually drove past the White Sox Stadium when we were there, and it was funny. Like the people of Chicago are just like that. Either there's nobody there that's like I like them both. Everybody there is either White Sox or Cubs. There's no in between. No love lost whatsoever
Uh,
between those two teams.
in fairness, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but nonetheless, we got
Yeah.
to have standards here. So
Okay.
yeah, we
All
try to
right.
minimize the Cardinal fans coming in too, but we do have a
Yeah.
few guys on the team, so we'll allow it,
All
but not
right.
too many.
Well, good deal. Well, Coach, I do want to thank you for being a part of GT1 Wrestle today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I wish you and your team the best success in 2025, 2026.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This was a blast.
Have a good day.
You too.